The Justice Department is asking an appeals court to pause a judge's ruling halting FDA approval of a widely used abortion pill. Conflicting rulings have caused confusion of the pill's future in the U.S., especially in states that have introduced new abortion restrictions following the fall of Roe v. Wade. For more, I'm joined by Leah Litman, a professor of law at the University of Michigan. She is also the co-host of the podcast Strict Scrutiny, which focuses on the Supreme Court and legal culture. Leah, it's very good to have you with us. Help us understand, just step back, what happened in the Texas ruling and what happened in the Washington state ruling, and how do they conflict with each other if they do?
So the Texas ruling is the first time in the country's history that a federal court has ever attempted to basically withdraw the Food and Drug Administration's approval of a drug that has been in circulation, in this case, for over 2 decades. Mifepristone was first approved in the year 2000. More than 5 million women have taken it. And the district court basically said that the FDA's approval of mifepristone doesn't exist, rendering the drug an unauthorized drug, and therefore it's potentially in violation of state and federal laws for manufacturers to make the drug, distributors to distribute it, and doctors to prescribe it. On the other hand, the Washington ruling, issued within the same hour as the Texas opinion, ordered the FDA not to alter the status quo as it exists right now with respect to mifepristone, at least in several states that had sued the FDA. These are Democratic-led states that sought to loosen some of the restrictions that the FDA has on mifepristone. So those rulings are potentially in conflict with one another to the extent that the Texas ruling essentially tells the FDA you can no longer approve mifepristone, and your approval of mifepristone no longer exists. And the Washington ruling is telling the FDA you can't change anything with respect to mifepristone as it exists right now.
So whose argument wins? What happens next?
So now the Biden administration has asked the court in Washington to clarify its ruling and to explain whether it conflicts with the Texas ruling, where it applies, and give the Biden administration some guidance about how to reconcile the rulings. At the same time, the Texas order has been stayed for 7 days, meaning that order doesn't actually go into effect until this upcoming Friday. Within that period, the Biden administration has already asked the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Fifth Circuit, which is the appellate court that oversees the state of Texas. They've asked that court to put on hold the district court opinion staying the FDA's approval of mifepristone. So that would mean that that Texas opinion wouldn't be in effect while the administration is challenging it. The Biden administration has asked the Court of Appeals to act by Thursday. The Texas opinion isn't supposed to go into effect until Friday, and so we'll see whether there's any action within that window.
And so the reason this is all important, getting this sorted out, is if somebody relies on or prescribes or receives mifepristone, they're going to wonder what the future is like for them. So what are the possible futures? I guess if there's a stay, that means you would still have access, and then the Washington judge has to basically define exactly what that ruling means. But help me out here. What's the practical effect of how this might go forward?
So the practical effect is a few different things could happen. One is that the Court of Appeals or even the U.S. Supreme Court could stay this district court opinion in Texas. That would essentially preserve the status quo and ensure that there is access to mifepristone for as long, as is needed to ultimately review the district court's opinion in this case. Now, if the district court opinion in Texas is allowed to go into effect, that's going to create a ton of uncertainty and chaos because providers, distributors, doctors, they're going to have to decide how much legal risk they're willing to face. Because even if the Biden administration says, look, we're not out to prosecute manufacturers, distributors, and providers who continue to facilitate access to mifepristone, nothing is going to stop states from enforcing their own criminal abortion bans or even bans specific to medication abortion if this FDA approval is treated as if it doesn't exist. Similarly, nothing is to stop a future Republican administration from going after these distributors and manufacturers if a Republican wins the presidency, in 2024.
What of those who have said, just ignore the judges, just say that you can't undo an FDA ruling, and so just ignore it to the administration or to individual states? Is that really possible? Can one do that?
I mean, this Texas order is completely lawless, and I think that the Biden administration needs to respond forcefully. However, I'm not sure that saying we're not going to enforce or listen to this order is actually going to fix the problem, because that isn't going to deal with the very real fear about potential legal consequences that manufacturers, distributors, and doctors will have. Because even if the Biden administration isn't going to enforce federal laws against prescribing unauthorized drugs when it comes to mifepristone, nothing is going to stop states from doing so, and nothing is going to stop a future Republican administration from attempting to do so. So the Biden administration, it's not clear that that would actually secure continued access to medication abortion.
All right, Leah Litman, thank you so much for being with us.
Thanks for having me.